welcome to another episode of The Spoken You with Jeff and Brett. Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Spoken You in our discourse to seek knowledge. From knowledge comes wisdom, but is preceded by questioning, and that's what we're here to do. Today's topic will try to remain objective by keeping our distance. We're talking about detachment. Jumping headfirst in this topic, I think it's best if we can determine the grounds on which we're going to discuss this word, as detachment has a lot of different meanings to a lot of different people. I think we'll be discussing detachment in terms of emotional detachment, more specifically the inability to connect with others emotionally, or a conscious decision to avoid engaging in emotional connections to maintain our boundaries. I want to be clear here. When I hear the word detachment, I think of someone being withdrawn or unavailable emotionally. Often in terms of self-healing, I hear that same word referred to as letting go. Being able to let go from a situation or a topic, which constitutes a little bit more positive feeling and a sense of emotional understanding. I guess I'll ask you, Brett, do you think there's a difference in the two words in your mind? Is one healthier than the other between detachment and, say, letting go from something?
The notion of detachment really, it comes down to caring more than anything else. Some folks just care way too much about too much stuff and kind of create this emotional vulnerability where it's almost impalpable. And on the other side of the spectrum, you've got this, level of not caring enough about anything whatsoever, apathy, which is, almost grotesque, individually speaking, society at large, however you like. I mean, it's actually, can be classified as a series of different personality disorders. So what we're talking about here is kind of getting to that, the meat of the issue, getting to the balance between the two, and really seeing what lies at the center of what is the healthiest manifestation of detachment.
I think that's a valid point you bring up about caring. We have to incorporate that into the conversation too. I mean, these are kind of the same words in the ballpark that all mean and explain different parts of detachment, I feel. My question would be, when you say caring or void of caring, in your mind, does that mean if we don't care, are we avoiding empathy? Are we avoiding empathy for a situation or a person? And is that a good thing in your mind?
Well, I want to discuss one of the personality disorders that, kind of jumps out at me, and that's, something that is Machiavellian, I guess, to put a word on it, which I guess in business is, considered to be prized, but in terms of personal relationships can be, actually a source of victimization to other people. What I've got here is narcissistic personality disorder. Involves not only arrogant behavior, but a lack of empathy for other people and a need for admiration of all, which consistently can be evident in both work and relationships. People who are narcissistic are frequently described as cocky, self-centered, manipulative, and demanding. And narcissists may concentrate on unlikely personal outcomes. There's a lot of other personality disorders, whether it's antisocial, borderline, histrionic, or histrionic. I don't know what that one means. But essentially, I think narcissists, in many ways are both leading the world and in media. I think to be a celebrity, for example, you would need a degree of narcissism to push ahead. And I think it's, again, going back to that gray area, I mean, some people are so riddled with self-hatred that they do not honor other people's boundaries, and, they're detached to excess because they're so self-absorbed. So I think on that one side of it, that is an unhealthy manifestation. There's another one called dissociative disorder, which is just an inability to, it's essentially, it was multiple personality disorder. So, it's amazing how much people can detach, from other people and their actions. So much so that even there's something called dissociative amnesia, where they have no recollection of what they've done.
But if we get into the disorder part of it that you were referring to, I mean, the word disorder in itself is disorder. That it's goes against what we would normally typically do. If somebody gets associated this disorder, they've been prescribed that. They're not maybe consciously saying, I want this disorder. That's just how they're acting. Or in your mind, do you feel this detachment is a conscious decision to be narcissistic or to have some of the qualities which you were describing? Because if I look at it in terms of you were talking about celebrityism or business, there's a certain level of detachment that you could say you would need to succeed in businesses such as that. And in that sense, is it healthy? Are they consciously making this decision to detach so that they can attack, manipulate, move forward and move ahead and gain the things that they want to gain?
Well, in terms of business, we definitely, the track records of large corporations, selling. I mean, even was it Toyota, where they or GM recently? They actively knew that the braking system would go out, or I think they ended up killing like 60 people or 16 people. I don't remember, but there was definitely someone's narcissism of their success and the profit over people. It was their personal gain or their success within the company that was hinged on that. And I think in terms of just on the personal level, it seems to me the research that I've done on this matter, which has been rather extensive as of late, has a lot to do with a parent either not being there and being totally absent, or playing or being manipulative or playing into a lot of stuff that would make a person kind of fortify themselves within themselves to protect themselves from being able to be hurt by other people.
If we're looking at detachment in the sense of it is born within you, not born as in you're coming into this world, but born within you, that you are raised under this idea and it's kind of grown over time. This form of detachment to me really rears its head as a problem where somebody might not even be aware that it's a problem. So it isn't a conscious choice that they're making to say, I choose to be narcissistic, or I choose to emotionally detach from this situation. It's just how they were molded and sculpted, and it's become part of their survival mechanism, almost in a way, to how they survived in their childhood, and it kind of manifests itself later in adulthood. But I'd like to then flip that and take that to where you're about to go into about with the Buddhist side of things, where detachment is a conscious decision and you are choosing to want to detach. Can you go a little bit into what you were going to say on the spiritual side of things, of making a conscious decision rather than a parental decision that gets made for you in a way?
Sure. I believe the Buddhists make more of a reference to expectations. I mean, if all of life is suffering, then detachment from it, from the illusion of life and the illusion of suffering, is a virtuous path as well. As you begin to, meditate and kind of see how everything has a temporal nature, how everything passes. You're having a bad day, and as opposed to acting on it and doing anything maybe self-abusive or things of that nature, I think waiting it out, waiting for the storm to pass, and realizing that another day is going to come, you're detaching yourself from the results or expectations, the expectations we have of other people. Which I think is really valuable. Expecting a lot from other people and then constantly finding ourselves disappointed, lighten up a little. Maybe it's time to detach.
My follow-up to that would be, how do we be certain that when we're doing that detachment or detaching of expectations, if we're even realizing, in fact, we are detaching from expectations, how do we balance that at the same time not feel like we're just avoiding our own emotional journey and the things that we need to learn? So you're sticking your hands up and saying, I don't really want to deal with this. That's not healthy. But in turn, is that what you need to really grow and be self-reflective on to grow?
at the end of the day, it's really about choosing your battles and, based on your integrity, which is essentially your blueprint, your truth and how you feel it should be lived. Relationships are a great example of this, is that, you can get into these habits where you're, picking or criticizing a lot of people's really small points that, quite honestly, everybody else in the world, you'd never care, but you've placed these expectations on this person, that I like the chocolate chip variety and not the peanut butter chip variety. I can't believe you brought that home, and making a really big deal out of it. And at the end of the day, what are you left with? But a grumbly lover. And, that's not care. And we have to choose our battles with those people, with our families, co-workers, friends, and I guess it comes down to how much detachment can you have, while still being engaged and deeply caring for someone. So that's a challenge, and I think that's regulated by the expectations, and again, choosing your battles.
To you, does that fall in line with the same point of, can you emotionally detach from these battles and still be viewed from others as loving them, loving society, loving the greater whole? Or do they always view you now as the person that is detached and is distant and aloof and doesn't really care about anything anymore? Do you lose that kind of emotional engagement in society in that way?
We really can only care about so much at any one given time. I mean, you can think about it like a distraction as well. I mean, very often you have things that you've got to do throughout the day, obligations that you have to multiple people, both professionally and personally. And, it's not always a good time to take a call. It's not always, the perfect time to, hold someone's hand through an issue that they're having, because your attention is demanded elsewhere. So I guess it's about mitigating time. I mean, I don't think it's our responsibility to make anyone else's lives work. Children, obviously, we need to guide them and supervision and all that sort of stuff. But I think there's definitely the helicopter parent, and then there's the parent that is never there. And then, it's that gray area of caring just enough.
When you're speaking about that whole mitigating your phone calls and we only have so much attention to care to someone, the thing that pops into my mind quite quickly is you're sitting there in New York, and that often gets wrapped in with a New York sense of mind. This kind of, I don't have time for you. I'm on my out of my way. I have my business. I have my meetings, and they often get associated with this attitude of not caring. And I'm curious, in your interaction with the folks of New York, do you find that a detaching sense of personality? Do you find that inviting? What's your whole mantra living there and dealing with this type of attitude?
It's a mixed bag. I mean, in many sense, I think it is a very Buddhist notion. I think that the New York Minute, despite being a faster reality and maybe a bit more of a neurotic reality than that original Buddhist sentiment, it does lay the groundwork. Listen, you're walking down the street and you see a child fall in New York City. I was talking to a cabbie about this a little while ago. He's like, I saw that the other day, and if we were in Ghana, I would have pulled my cab over and helped him up and gotten him to where he needed to go. In any way, shape, and form possible. So there's different levels to it. I remember being 8 years old on the West Side Highway and seeing a guy clutch his chest and have a heart attack right as 5 o'clock, middle of traffic, land on the ground, and no one even looked at the guy. So, there is a real expanse of the kind of the virtuous sense of listen, I gotta do what I gotta do. But I think there's also the neglectful side of it that is transcendent of, maybe that's the notion of most cities. But after telling people I saw that at 8 or 9, a lot of people were like, well, he could have been faking and would have picked your pocket. So, again, it goes back to the expectations people have. I think that there's a healthy level of detachment, and we're not here to save everybody on Earth. But on the same token, we do also need to, feel like we're in this together.